Welcome, I'm your host, AlleyCat. This is the Tad Bit Obsessive podcast. Tad Bit Obsessive is a podcast that entertains the neurodivergent people who long to hear about random, lighthearted deep dives not narrowed down to fun facts in video essays. We talk if only for a temporary smile. Now, this is the first episode of the Tad Bit Obsessive podcast, and it was a bit hard to decide the first thing to think about when there are so many things that I've obsessed about over the years, but I thought a good place to start would be in fan fiction. A little bit about me, fan fiction has been my special interest since I was 10. I have literally read hundreds of fanfics, possibly thousands in my lifetime. I actually made my New Year's resolution to count various things in my life, from the amount of squats that I do to the amount of hours I spend drawing. I have decided to get a counting app because I suck at counting, but also so I can count these various things. And one thing that I've been counting is 1 point per 1,000 words of fan fiction I read this year. Now, the fan fiction number, it's not exact. I just round to the nearest 1,000. So if it's 1,589, it goes to 2,000, and if it's 5,426, then it drops down to 4,000. And as of recording this, April 19th, I have read 1,544,000 words so far, which is, it's a lot. I definitely, although, mind you, I do use Speechify, I'd say about 1/5 of the time. But it's such a great thing to do for me. I love fan fiction a lot. I find there's a lot of creativity and freedom in fan fiction. I find when I can't find media that I desire because it's not popular, or because it's too niche, or because, frankly, the wackiness that I long for isn't that popular. But with fanfiction, I can go to AO3 and I can look for what I want specifically, and I can find golden stuff. And through it all, I definitely have my favorite fics. I have quite a bit of author subscriptions and work subscriptions, and I also have my favorite authors. And out of the tons and tons of fics that I've read, there was one author that stands above the rest of me, Flapjack09. Now, I'm going to tell you a little bit about Flapjack09. These statistics are a little bit out of date. By the time I wrote this script, updated this script, it was March 26th. So, not as up to date as it could be, but that's just because Flapjack09 is a prolific fanfic writer, and I honestly have no idea how they have the time or energy or creativity to create as much spectacular work as they do. March 26, 2025, they had 41 fics in the My Hero Academia fandom, 17 under the humor tag, and 33 being some variant of the crack tag. I'm very biased because the genre of fanfiction crack and the subgenre crack treated seriously have to be my favorite. Fanlore.org describes crack as, quote, fanworks with a fundamentally ludicrous premise or otherwise including a plethora of unbelievable, incredible, or just plain silly elements. That is, implying that the author/artist must have been on drugs to produce something so bonkers, end quote. I firmly believe Flapjack09 has mastered this genre. I will prove this with summarizing my favorite fics by Flapjack09, the characters within it, including the best quotes along the way. The first fic I ever read of theirs is All It Takes Is a Good Friend, first published on December 3rd, 2023, and the latest chapter published on March 15th, 2025. There are 87 chapters and counting in a sum of 358,754 words. You may be thinking, that is one freaking long story. And my response is, yes it is, but also, no. The whole fic is a series of one-shots, all with the same pattern, but with a twist each time. Think infinite alternate universes with the same premise. Each fic starts with middle schooler Izuku Midoriya being bullied by Katsuki Bakugo. A new person comes into Izuku's life, and Bakugo gets his comeuppance. The new person presents changes each chapter, as in, the character that is presented in each chapter presents a new element, and it switches up the interactions and gives a unique consequence to Bakugo by the end of each chapter. Consequences including, but not limited to, tanking his reputation, making a fake Bakugo that everyone likes more than him, closing the school, befriending the Yakuza, convincing him he is haunted, taking his quirk thrice, beating him in an explosion competition, beating him in a spicy pepper competition, beating him in a magic competition, making him hallucinate twice, conditioning him to still under yellow light, stealing his All Might merchandise, forcing him to witness multiple Izukus, ordering animals to attack him by singing opera, convincing him he has committed murder, getting the better test score than him, giving him a crisis via apathy, beating him in a bunny costume, being more popular than him, making his homework invisible, blackmail twice, tape, dresses, and revolution. I hope that has enticed you at least a little bit and conveyed just a little bit of why this work needs to be adored. The first chapter that had enraptured me with its humor was chapter 2, Ida the Delinquent. Now, it is good to get into who exactly Tenya Ida is in canon. He is known to be as being a rule follower. He has a strict code of honor and is the embodiment of integrity. He is very passionate and speaks with boisterous volume and authoritative vigor. However, it should be noted that in Season 2, he attempts to murder a man who disabled his brother. He's also a firm believer in getting into character. He wears a comedically uncanny disguise when sneaking off to save a friend, and when assigned the role as villain in class training, he went as far as to alter what he says, how he speaks, and what mannerisms he portrays. With that established, let's get to fanon. Arguably the superior version, honestly. Tenya transfers to Aldera Middle School, the school where Izuku and Bakugo reside. His reason for transferring is none other than a fireworks truck. A Deus Ex Machina character, lovingly named Fireworks Truck-kun. Side note, I love Fireworks Truck-kun. The little things throughout the story that just change slightly. The little things like, okay, I know Fireworks Truck-kun is gonna be mentioned each chapter, but how is it gonna happen? Because somehow, a fireworks truck is going to be the reason for a new person coming into the story. But it is honestly amazing how many little twists you can put on that premise and still have it be new every time. And I like that it also varies when it is introduced in the story. So you get lulled into a false sense of security where you're like, okay, they're just here for some other reason. The fireworks truck, they just came here because they lost their job or something like that. And then you're like almost to the end of the story and it's like, there it is. There it is. When Pony Sudanori transfers to Aldera Middle School, you're like, where's Fireworks Truck-kun? And you're like, oh, I guess he's not in this chapter. And then all of a sudden, it's like, oh, where are they gonna get pipers for their spicy competition? And it's all of a sudden, Fireworks Truck-kun breaks into the school, unloads a bunch of peppers, and it's like, there it is. There it is. It happened. And it's funny every time. It gets funnier every time. But now that we got Fireworks Truck-kun established, let's get back to chapter 2. Tenya Ida had just transferred to the school, and it doesn't take long for him to witness the quirkism in the school, something that stays consistent in every chapter. Now, it should be noted that quirkism is a word made by fans of My Hero Academia used to encompass any discrimination or prejudice over an individual's quirk status, whether it be quirklessness or a quirk that may be stereotyped as villainous. Zuku Midoriya falls into the quirkless category. So when Tenya sees the quirkism that is unleashed upon Izuku, Tenya's first resort is to report the quirkism and bullying to the school staff. certain that any authority figure would do the right thing. However, they do not. The adults in the story suck. And Tenya is very crushed with this revelation. His brother Tensei gives Tenya some advice. Tensei is a hero, but he also works along with vigilantes. He says, quote, "Sometimes you have to break the rules to enforce the rules," end quote. While Tenya is first torn by this advice, he then gains resolve. If he was going to become an enemy, he needed to play the part to completion. Then ensues the most ridiculous caricature of what a 3-year-old may consider villainous. The grand entrance, nay, the grand reveal of what exactly Tenya had to prepare himself for is a priceless thing to behold. Quote, "The next day, Zuko stood at the school's entrance, utter bafflement etched upon his face. 'What is up, my bro?' Tenya greeted, trying and failing to make his voice sound as tough as possible. His voice wasn't the only thing that radiated faux toughness, however. His hair was messy, his tie was undone, his shirt was not tucked in, and one of his pant legs was partially torn off. "Ida, what are you doing?" Zuko finally asked. "Why, I'm taking a stance against your bullies in the school that encourages them." "By becoming a delinquent?" "Of course!" Tenya exclaimed as he power-walked into the building. "Come now, we must speed walk in the halls so we may get to class on time instead of the expected 15 minutes beforehand." As Izuku and Tenya speed walked down the halls, Tanya pulled out a black Sharpie and began leaving tiny, barely noticeable dots on the walls. "I am desecrating these walls with my act of vandalism," he shouted. End quote. I need you to understand that while he is walking and talking, he is leaving barely perceptible dots on the wall. Do you understand how hard that would be? He's not leaving dashes or marks, but barely perceptible dots. You would have to have such a steady walk to not stumble and to lift your hand at just the right time as to make the dot so tiny. And he's speed walking, so he's doing this quickly. So the amount of care that he is putting into this action of desecrating, quote unquote, desecrating these school walls with his act of vandalism, end quote, that's just golden to me, because he is desecrating them, but he's also putting in so much care to leave tiny, tiny dots. It's that moment when you try so hard to be bad that you are just endearingly good. Another fic of Flapjack09's is Quirk Roulette. Quirk Roulette was first published May 1st, 2024, and completed on September 11th that year. It has a total of 51,307 words and 6 chapters. The fic's premise is simple. Zuko Midoriya gets a new random quirk every day, and he isn't going to let that stop him from being a hero. His daily quirks include, but are not limited to, pulling rabbits out of hats, Christmas, technical errors, financial intelligence, mime, and parrot. My favorite moment is in Chapter 5, the flattest quirk ever. The build-up is perfect. You first find out Izuku is literally a sentient sheet of paper. His quirk is paper for that day. His quirk is paper for that day. He is paper. And then you find out that the class is about to go on their school field trip to the Unforeseen Simulation Joint, USJ, a location for the school to train in. For those who have seen the original anime or manga, or those who have made their way around a good share of fics, they definitely have a sense of impending doom, or perhaps overjoyed anticipation. It just so happens that the day the class visits the USJ, it's the day the League of Villains, LOV, attack. The attack is a canonical event. Most fics include the event, though many have a different approach to how it goes down. As expected from Flapjack09, the event is quite comical. Now, taking into account that they're going to the USJ and that the League of Villains will probably attack, and then also putting that together with the fact that Izuku Midoriya is a piece of paper, we can conclude that Izuku Midoriya's quirk is probably the most unfortunate quirk he could have possibly gotten for that unfortunate day. Though it wouldn't be a crackfic if they didn't do the unexpected. For Izuku isn't as helpless as one would expect. For protection, Izuku Midoriya is laminated. Laminated. They laminate a child. And to escape, he's folded up and turned into a paper airplane. He flees the scene, or flies the scene. He flies away as a paper airplane. But that is not even the best part. Now, rather than summarizing this golden scene, I will read it word per word because it is perfect how it is. Quote, "He was pulled from his thoughts as he heard the ground shake, as if a large hulking force was stomping around. Looking up, he saw a large, bulky man whose skin looked to be entirely made of rocks. Momo and Sero tried their usual methods against him, but he simply shrugged them off. Ha! Puny heroes! If you can't beat a rock, how can you expect to beat any other villains?" The rock man pulled his fist back to strike, and Izuku saw his chance. He leaped up and draped his papery self over the villain's face. "What is going on here?" the villain boomed, blindly grabbing at the boy, obscuring his vision. Izuku smiled as he tightened his grip. "Haven't you ever heard? Paper beats rock." "Paper?" The man pulled Izuku off his face and got a good look at his two-dimensional body. His eyes widened in fear as he threw the student to the ground. "No, no! Stay away from me!" And he immediately booked it out of the conflagration zone, screaming like a child the whole way. End quote. This is peak crack humor. Not only is Izuku Midoriya paper, which I still cannot get over, the villain is rock. And the rules of rock, paper, scissors apply. Now let's think about the rules of rock, paper, scissors for a moment. Scissors beats paper, which makes sense. Scissors can easily cut paper into pieces, and when you cut something into pieces, it is usually rendered defeated. Then there is rock beats scissors. This makes sense, at least at first. Rocks smash things. Something smashed would be rendered defeated, but most scissors are stainless steel. The average rock has nothing against stainless steel. If you doubt me, pick up a random rock from your backyard and hit it against scissors for a while. See what happens. At most, you're gonna leave a scratch on the scissors. You might say, but what if it's a really big rock? So you're going with the smush instead of smash approach, aiming to render it incapacitated with weight. Well, I've got news for you. It says rock, paper, scissors, not boulder, paper, scissors. You might say, well, scissors can't beat rock. You would be right. Scissors can only win if it is an abnormally soft rock like shale. Then you would have to chisel it with the scissors. But typically, at most, you would just scratch it, meaning rock versus scissors is a draw. Then, let's get to the most preposterous of them all. Paper beats rock. Paper cannot harm rock. If scissors can barely cut rock, then a paper cut ain't gonna do squat. All paper does is cover rock. Now, there may be a few reasons covering your opponent would be helpful. 1. Suffocation, like a pillow on a sleeping individual. It can kill. However, let me remind you, rocks do not breathe. They don't need oxygen. Sorry to break it to all those who wanted to drown their rocks. It ain't gonna work. Now, another reason you might cover a rock is to render it immobile, make it incapacitated. If it can't hurt you, you win, right? If you think paper makes rocks immobile, do me a favor. Take a rock, cover it in paper, and give it a good chuck. That paper did nothing. If anything, it was an accomplice to the damage your chucked rock did. And probably, if you chucked it enough, You probably scratched up the paper too and the rock was fine. But now that I think about it, maybe the rock is claustrophobic. But as far as I'm aware, rocks do not have phobias. You know what? Rock and paper should team up. Paper can't do anything. It is a victim in all circumstances. It might as well have a good time watching the world burn. So go ahead, cover your rock and paper and chuck it. Might as well have a fun life chucking things. Fly for a bit. So rock, paper, scissors is a stupid game. It makes no sense. It makes no sense, literally speaking. It makes less sense when that illogical scenario is applied to reality. In the same way that rock, paper, scissors works, this fic is just as preposterous and does not hold up to any logical scrutiny. Flapjack09 capitalized on that absurdity and made a masterpiece of a scene. They really are a great author. If you like wholesome, morally ambiguous, funny media, go check them out. This has been AlleyCat ranting about my hyperfixation for this amazing author that you've probably never heard of, but definitely should hear about. Because this is amazing, and if you're bored or want something funny in your life, I sincerely hope you go check out Flapjack09. They are on Archive of Our Own, and they have so many fics to look over and read. And even if you don't have time to read them, download it, upload it to Speechify, read it, listen to it, and then just give them a little kudo. Just a little kudo. They really deserve it. Their work is amazing. I hope that in some way you have enjoyed this podcast and that I have cured your boredom for at least a little moment or given you a temporary smile. Okay, bye!